Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have a great episode for you today with the incredible Lilah Rose. Lilah is a terrific singer-songwriter and member of the band Prism Bitch. We're coming in with one of their songs, You Got, I Want. If you're located in my hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico, they're playing tonight, March 9th, at the Launchpad, so please check them out. And for our LA listeners, they're playing this Friday at The Smell. I'll also be there, so come check it out and say hi to me as well. Today's show is so much fun, and Lilah has such an infectious personality. So let's get into it. Here's our chat with Lilah Rose. Hello, we are here with Lilah Rose, incredible singer, songwriter, musician. Lilah, I love you so much. Thank you so much for joining.
I love you too, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
We have an awesome history. I've always admired Lilah and her musicianship so much. There was a point in time we almost got to work together on a record, but since then I have been just the biggest fan. We've played some shows together. You opened with my band Great States on one of our album release shows. And so I've just been a fan of yours so much, and I'm just so glad we get the chance to chat with you today.
Me too. I'm excited that you wanted to talk to me.
Yes. Lilah is currently a member of the band Prism Bitch, and she also has a great solo record out there called Poltergeist. So listeners, go listen to it. She's got some awesome music. But as we get started, Lilah, and if you need to pull anything up, you can to refresh yourself. But can you let us know what your pop 5 is with no comment, no context? What is your pop 5?
So I originally... Ryan is amazing. He has this forum that you fill out of 5 pop references that have inspired you. And I had 5. And then I thought of like 10 more after the fact. But the original 5, I believe, were Spill to Spill, Keep It Like a Secret, The Police, Ghost in the Machine, Meet the Beatles. Let's see, LeAnn Rimes, Blue. And what was the last one?
You had like a hybridization, and that's why I wanted to check in.
Oh yeah, the hybrid. That was Blink-182. Take off your pants and jacket, and Taking Back Sunday. Tell all your friends. So
nailed it.
It was like a hybrid there. But then, oh my God, and I'm gonna catch you off guard, but I thought of like 7 other things. And like some of which are really important to me. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, maybe these guys are better than the ones I referenced, but they're not all better than one. They're all very important. You know, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. I mean, that stuff is so good too. I can't just not mention that, but
one of my favorite.
Yeah.
I think you're good. One of my favorite things about the show, when we were kind of figuring this out and talking with the original designer, who I love, Dan Canvas, shout out to you. But one of the things that you'll see in kind of our logo is it says My Pop 5, but one of our biggest branding symbols is the 5 also has a little green asterisk on it. And that's because yes, there's 5 things, but we also know that it branches out into more and more things. So I think you'll probably be the first guest that we're really leaning into the asterisk of it, but it's all good. That's why it's built in.
I couldn't deny these other things. I was like, these are my top. Well, I like hashed it. So top 6, but also, yeah, there's a lot more than the top 6. It's so hard to determine which pop artist has affected you the most, because there's so many, obviously.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things about musicians in general, right? And it might be most people that love music in general, but I know for musicians so specifically, you pull from so many different influences. And your answer today would probably be different tomorrow, and then different in a year from now. And so also great to just see a snapshot of like kind of how you feel about how you were impacted today, and kind of getting into that. But Lilah, why don't you tell us and the audience a bit about your background and kind of how did you get involved with music in the first place?
I'm a weirdo. I probably got involved. Well, I was lucky. I was born into a musical family. So I had a father who had instruments around and a little home recording studio. So I was able to make thunder on his little keyboard whenever I wanted, and a piano in our living room that I could just bang on anytime I wanted, before, after school, during, whatever, whatever I was doing, I was always able to create music. I had a very musical family. My brother is very talented as well. We both grew up in orchestra. And so I was able to kind of have a family that wanted to support the arts in general. And I also have, like, every single time I went to a family reunion, we'd play music. And that was like the highlight of my year. Every Thanksgiving, being able to play the drums, my Uncle Jimmy's drums, or like my dad's guitar, or my Uncle Bob's piano. I guess having the freedom to explore any sort of instrument that I wanted and being supported in the fact was, I guess, yeah, I was in choir, I was in orchestra, I was just constantly creating in addition to playing sports. So it was like the two combined were just like my outlets in life. And I always was able to create. And then I got a computer when I was in college and just kind of started producing my own stuff and realizing that you can make stuff on computers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was like 2010 or 2011. And then
Wow.
I moved to Albuquerque in 2014, and I just was already like in a creative process by making music on my computer in general. So I made an electronic album that I released, and then I was in Albuquerque at the time I released that. That's Poltergeist that you referenced, which is super sweet. That's super old, and I appreciate that, and it's super fun. And then I got into rock music, and I had a few bands, and you were gonna drum on one of my albums, and then somebody else did, and like everybody's always, convoluted in the music scene, but Albuquerque really gave me a place to like create music all the time, because there's like always shows happening there, and there's always a community of artists that are just willing to like grab you with open arms and listen to what you have to say. And then I met my band, which is Prism Bitch, which you mentioned at the beginning of this. And we all just kind of were like a little all-star group, if you can say that, because we were all in different projects. And we're able to just continue creating music together, which was super exciting and fun. And yeah, and now I'm here, and this is 2021, and I'm still in that band, and I'm still creating solo music. And yeah, it all kind of came from playing since I was like 4.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And,
It's a long answer, but yeah, it all kind of goes like that.
yeah, that's lucky. I know for myself, and everyone's experience is a little bit different, but I didn't have anyone necessarily musical in my family. Like my dad would like to sing and stuff, but nothing that like was ever like pursued heavily. And so I'm the only musician in my family. And so I'm envious a little bit of that, but also thankful for my own experience. But I wanted to kind of go back to when you first came to Albuquerque, because I remember when I first met you, Albuquerque as being a home for you was not at all in the plans. You just seemed at the time to just be in town for a little bit with full intentions of going back to, I think, Arizona. Forgive me if I got that wrong.
No,
but yeah, what happened and kind of what made you want to stay? Was it those musical influences that you talked about, or the people that you met?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I was kind of like off of the trail of a heartbreak, and I had been living in Nashville, and it was just kind of like, where do I go? And I went home. I went and lived with my family for a bit, my mom, and I was like friends with a lot of people in different places. And one of my friends was living in Albuquerque at the time, and she was like, "Come on over. Like, we have room for you. It's a cool town. It's cool, a lot of good stuff going on." And I was like, "All right, cool." And I had decided to work with a producer out there, and was just, interested in recording what I had been writing, which was like very heavily folk and bluegrass inspired. And so I was just kind of in this place where I was writing and recording with this producer out in Albuquerque, and it was only supposed to be a few months. of time, and it turned into a really like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm glad that that's what happened, because I was able to really create a home in Albuquerque and meet, like my fiance that I am involved with now, and then my band that I'm involved with now, and just really explore who I was as an artist in general, as a musician, and given the space to be able to do that, which
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit different than all the places I've lived. I've lived in a lot of spots, and a lot of places are convoluted with music and or not convoluted with music. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can try and you can not try. And it was nice to be in a place that there was a lot of artistry in general, and a lot of artists just doing the same kind of thing that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to explore what actually playing a show felt like, and like actually meeting bands felt like. And there's so many breweries in Albuquerque, so I was able to really like branch out into playing and creating a career out of like solo music, and like 2-hour sets every Wednesday kind of thing. And that was very special, because I'd always wanted to do that, but I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't really been in a place where that was possible before. Open mics were a lot more possible than like a career in playing breweries and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think moving to Albuquerque really gave me the opportunity to be able to like feel like I was a musician and meet
Mm-hmm.
other like-minded musicians like yourself, and
Yeah.
play shows, like open for shows that like yourself, your other band, Great States. And that was a great memory for me. And then create like this whole other brand within my other band, Prism Bitch, that we've literally branched out of Albuquerque, which has been very cool, because Albuquerque is very cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, we've just been able to kind of like, we found Treefort Music Festival in 2017, and ever since then we've just been kind of like playing outside of Albuquerque in addition to playing Albuquerque. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so cool. One
Hmm.
of my favorite things with Prism Bitch related, I was having like a real low moment in quarantine in the pandemic.
Totally,
And
me too.
I was like so down, missing playing so much, which I'm sure you were because you were touring quite a bit beforehand.
Yeah.
But you guys posted a really fucking cool video of playing You Got What I Want, like all separately, And
Yeah.
I remember like I remembered the song because I remember when you guys had first released it, but then I was like, oh, this is cool. It was like one of the first like quarantine performance videos that I had seen, and like seeing you guys playing in the different rooms. And then when you guys like just fucking ripping at the end, I like it like made me feel hope and feel good again. And just seeing you guys like lay into things, I was just like, oh, I love that song so much now. Not because like, I mean, I did love it before, but it like has like an even new level for me because it like really lifted me at a time when I was just really down. And so I just wanted to share that story with you because it's such a special song. And that moment, that video, well, I don't know, what your guys' intentions were when it was released, but for me, it like made a huge impact and it was super cool.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so
Yeah.
nice. Thank you. I think that's probably the intention, is we wanted
Sure.
to, reach
Yeah.
anybody who needed some music, and including ourselves. Like, we were
Mhm.
very same exactly how we were very depressed, and just like, I don't know, not even hopeless, but just like, obviously this is happening for a lot of musicians right now. We're all kind of out for the count.
Mhm.
Nobody's really able to see each other right now. I mean, even if I live in Las Vegas, Nevada right now, but even if I was in Albuquerque, Lauren, Chris, and Teresa weren't seeing each other because Teresa works in a hospital, and also it was
Mm.
quarantine, and nobody was able to see each other, period. So like 9 months went by without any human like connection, even
Yeah.
within our own band. And I'm sure that went across the board with a lot of people, and especially musicians, where you're really not able to create the same way that you were creating as a band. So yeah, I'm glad that that resonated with you, because we were also very hungry.
Totally. Well,
Yeah.
Prism Bitch actually got the opportunity to tour with one of the bands here in your Pop 5, Built to Spill, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
I
But tell
know.
me, let's get into that record. Tell me about Keep It Like a Secret and why do you love it and kind of why was it here on your Pop 5?
Oh man, it's so crazy. I love Built to Spill. I always have. Keep It Like a Secret's been in my rotation since I was 14 years old. I'm 31 now. It's wild. It's wild what you can manifest in your life when you truly like think back on life and how everything's played out. But I've listened to Keep It Like a Secret since I was 14, like I was saying, and Carry the Zero is one of my favorite songs, and it's kind of like a staple in a lot of indie rock people who love that song as well. And I don't know, like I met Doug March back in 2017 when we played Treefort. It might have been 2018. I don't really know. Like yours are mixed. I think it was 2018 actually, now that I think about it, which is crazy because it's only been a few years since that happened. But since that time, like we were able to tour with them a few different times, and now our drummer Teresa is drumming for Built to Spell.
No way.
Yeah, because Doug, just saw the talent in her, and who can't? Like she's so talented. Being able to talk to Doug and just be like, you know what, like your album means and meant so much to me back when I was young, and it still does. And hearing you play these songs like currently blows my mind away. Yeah, that album is still so prevalent in my musical taste, and then now I actually know the human behind a lot of the songwriting, which is super cool. And now I know my best friend is drumming for that same album when she's on tour with Built to Spill, which is going to start in December. And even like when we went on tour with them before, like I would just literally watch them play and just be like, wow, like this album is so important to my heart, and it still is. Like I had lyrics of theirs from that album like on my computer that I had sharpied onto my computer, my little Windows high school computer. And it's still there, and that song still plays, and I get to see it live, which is very interesting because I never knew that what was going to happen.
Yeah. No, that's so crazy. Built to Spill, I think for every record kind of before this one was very known for their like intricate musicianship. But I think this one is like their closest thing that they have to a pop album, right? Very most hi-fi of their records and things like that. Was this your intro to Built to Spill, or was this like something that was refreshing because you were already aware of them? Or what do you think 14-year-old Lilah, was drawn to? We'll get back to the show in just a moment. We're pausing for a brief moment because we want to talk about some ways you can help support the show. The truth is, you're already supporting just by listening. But in season 2, one of our biggest goals is connecting with you. So if you're interested in helping us out, here are some ways you can support. Number 1, rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Number 2, follow us on Instagram at MyPop5. And number 3, share your favorite episode or the show with a friend and tag us when you do. Art is at the center of what we do here, and I mentioned we want to connect with you. So if you share the show with a friend and let us know, we're going to pick someone every week and buy you that vinyl, book, or movie that's been sitting on your wish list. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and we'll get back to the show.
I think 14-year-old Lilah was just always drawn to whatever they played in general. Yeah. I actually, like, I started getting into Built to Spill when I was 14, and then I moved to Boston, and I saw Built to Spill 3 times when I was in Boston at different clubs, the Middle East and Paradise Rock Club. And so I'd see them play different renditions of their songs, whether it was Aisle 13 or Keep It Like Secret or all their different albums. They kind of always mix their setup. So I think I've just always been intrigued by the music in general. And so being able to relate it to now and being like, haha, you saw them so many different times and you paid for that. And now you don't have to pay for it. You can just literally go to the main part of the barricades and watch them anytime you want. Your best friends in the band also is like so special. So special. And I like when they come off stage, I'm like, Teresa, I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. And I'm literally weeping because they're playing songs like Liar, which is like, I would only be a liar. And that's been around since the 90s or the 2000s or whatever. And I've always listened to that song since I was like 15, 16. And seeing my best friend play it, but also seeing Doug, who's also one of my best friends, play it is pretty incredible because I can relate it to my present and be like, you know what? Like, you've come a long way. You've come around a few suns. I'm happy where you are right now because you're able to appreciate this in this moment. And I miss it when it's not there, but being able to, like, I take videos every time. Like, I always have my camera, so I'm always like the mom being like, Teresa, I love you. You're my girl. And she's like, thanks, Mom. Like, I love you, Mom. And so I look back on those videos and they're so heartwarming. Just being able to be like, yeah, this happened. This is real. This is super cool. This is like important to me, to my soul, to my craft, to who I was and to who I am now currently. So
Yeah.
big
Totally.
answer.
No, it's awesome. Keep It Like a Secret, I think to me is like just full of just beautiful melodies. You know, I think like
Totally.
that's one of the biggest things on that record. Like I think of Center of the Universe and like there's so many melodies in there that I just like I get chills, you know, and like
Chills, yeah.
lyrical content, of course. But, you know, I just think like some of the things that are happening music wise and melody wise are just like kind of what really carries this whole record for me.
Totally.
I've also kind of heard some of the influence, I think, in Prism Bitch specifically, right? Is that intentional, or do you think that was like, you know, part of touring with them, or did that come prior to even meeting them because of the fact that you and maybe some of the others listened to them, or do you not think that there's a big influence on them, on you guys and your artistry?
Oh, I don't know. Man, that's a hard one. Maybe for sure, because I've been influenced by them since I was little. And so has Chris Walsh, who's the other guitarist in the band. He's listened to Built to Spill since he was little too. So we're both super inspired by the indie rock era, and that includes Doug March and Built to Spill.
Yeah.
Our new writing it's interesting. It's like half when we first met and then half when we really formed as a band. So there's some new songs on there that really I'm not sure are inspired by Built to Spill, but they could be. You never
Right.
know, especially since we've been around them. We've been around Doug so much these last 3 years, and our new
And you,
songs probably are inspired by him.
and you're referring to Perla, your most recent record. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, we just came out with an album last year called Perla. It's named after Teresa, our drummer's mother, and she's alive and well. And
That's good.
yeah, every time we go to Sacramento, she and her brother Ed and their whole family just put us up with so much love, and we just love Perla. And so we kind of came up with this concept that we would name our future albums kind of after our mothers.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, we were like, you know what? Perla is the best one to start with. It's a great name, first of all. And second of all, she's just such a wonderful woman. And so, yeah, we kind of started with Perla as our inspiration for that.
That's awesome. Perla is such a beautiful name too. So
It
it's just
is.
like
It totally is. And
I
you know
was
what?
scared.
She didn't like her name. She does like her name, but she didn't like her name because it was like some sort of brand in the Philippines. I can't remember what it was exactly. I don't want to say something I don't know. But and now she, because of our album, she's like, I love my name because you guys named it after me.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, she's so beautiful. She really is. She's a wonderful woman.
Yeah. So, audience, go check that record out because it's
Check it
also awesome.
out.
Yeah.
Pearl.
Well, let's move on to your next one here that I have. Police, Ghost in the Machine. Talk to me about that. How did you get introduced to the Police, and what is it about this record that you love so much?
So good. Oh my gosh. I still listen to that album constantly. My parents loved the Police, and they would always put that album on when we were traveling. My grandparents lived in California, and so anytime we were in the car, that album was just constantly playing. And so I kind of, and like anytime I would go to school, like fourth grade, second, third, fourth grade, I would like have that album in the car playing while I was going to school. And that one and the other one that we'll mention later is the Beatles with, Meet the Beatles. But so those two albums were always on repeat, just constantly playing in the background. And I just really grew to love the Police, and I still listen to the Police to feel like a sense of calm and like a sense of I know who I am, because that album, anytime I hear any song off that album, I feel better.
Yeah.
So it's like a nostalgic, but also like an emotional tie that I need that album in my life constantly, or I will be depressed.
It's hard not to when you like everything, every little thing she does is magic. Like that
Right?
tune, once that hook hits in, you're just like, you can't help but be in a better mood after that.
You can't. In the Moon. I mean, every song on that whole album, like Lauren has it on cassette, and we'll go to her office sometimes, which is like outside of her home, and I'll just put that. She'll be like, "What do you want to listen to?" And I'll be like, "This album." And every time I just put it on, I'm able to produce, like I'm able to be productive, because there's just so much goodness within that album in general. It's just so, so good.
Yeah. It's interesting to me too, because I know that was like their fourth record, and
Yeah.
there were so many different like musical switches throughout their career. With this one specifically, like it wasn't the intro, but it was like the most influenced with like more electronic sounds, I think, as well as like in
Yeah.
addition to the tonal shift, like with the electronics and things, it was also like the most political they had been, I think, with like some of the songs on the record. But if you're not focusing on the lyrics, like we talk about like how lively and good it makes you feel, like some of the subject matter is also like they're being very stern, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, going back and listening to that record as an adult, you know, and kind of really getting into what was happening topically at that time, to where the subject matter is starting to hit more, like it even just raises that record even more in terms of, you know, relatability and just like importance.
Right. I don't even consider that, because I wasn't even like an adult at that
Mm-hmm.
time. So I should re-listen to it and research that time in general and be like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, this was happening.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned something that like I was thinking of, and I've had this thought as like a musician myself, and I'm curious if you've had a similar experience. Me, when I think about records like this, you painted this awesome picture about driving in the car to California to visit your grandparents, or right,
Yeah.
fourth and sixth grade driving to school. Are there moments or songs that like can put you back in that space exactly? Because there are some records for me that like I remember exactly where I heard it, and I could see the road, and I can see wherever it was I was in those moments. And like, do you have that same experience with music in general?
100%. Especially, I mean, that album, Dr. Demento, if you ever listen to
Mm.
Dr. Demento, that album, the green one, I don't even remember what it's called, but I know it's
Mm-hmm.
green. Like these 90s songs that are all dance songs, it's called Shut Up and Dance, this whole album that I can remember, that brings me right back into these like moments where I was just youthful, excited. Madonna brings me back there.
Mm.
So many. I mean, Bewitched. Do you remember
Oh, yeah,
Bewitched?
yes.
And Mandy Moore, like those bands,
Oh.
Britney Spears. Those types of moments bring me back to like, yeah, like just being such a child and like loving every moment of life, and not. I mean, even Smash Mouth. I'm sorry, but like that album, like All Star, are you kidding me? Like that song, that whole album brought me to life when I was like, 12.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Like you say that and like almost said like to feel like it was a guilty pleasure of some sort. But what I think is interesting is there are so many pop culture elements that have just become a meme in today's rate. Like it's almost like a joke
Totally.
anytime you talk
Yeah.
about it. But at the same time, like it's only relatable as a joke because of how impactful it was at that time, right? Like
Yeah.
if it was something else that didn't have any relevance, like no one would care. It wouldn't take off as a
Yeah.
joke or as a meme, just so to speak, you know? So like I have no shame with anything I've loved. You know, I think I've said it on the show before. Like
Right?
I had an obsession at one point with High School Musical, and like it's just like, you know what?
Yes,
I'll go back
totally.
and I have no shame about it because I know I wasn't the only one,
You
or we've
were,
had
right.
and we have people who we've had like episodes about Twilight and things like that. So it's like, I mean, this stuff is relevant and people can laugh about it because it was so impactful for so many people. So I say,
Totally.
fuck yeah. All Star is a
Fuck
smash.
yeah.
And if you don't bob your head to that song, you're lying. You're lying to
You're
yourself.
lying. You are. It was such a banger when it
Yeah.
came out. It was like what you listened to in 3rd grade to get ready for school,
Yes.
Like, come on. I mean, there's so many songs. Incubus and System of a Down. Like, I loved those bands too at the same time. So it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah. So moving back to the Police a little, are you also a fan of like Sting and his solo stuff, or was it mostly with Police in general?
Yes, I love Sting. I do. I think he's such a hottie. I saw him when I was like 10 at MGM with my family, and like, he was playing like "A Ring of Red Rain" or whatever that album is called, The Desert Rose or whatever. And it was so inspiring for me. I loved every minute of that performance. And we had that album because and so I was able to love that performance because I already knew what the album was and I was so little. Um, and knowing that Sting was a part of the Police, like, and I was able to see him live was super special. So yeah, Sting solo, Sting Police, Sting anything.
I'm going to transition here real quick. You mentioned it a little bit ago, but the Beatles Meet the Beatles record was kind of also in this time, in this space.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about the Beatles and your love for them as well.
Oh, the Beatles. They're so dreamy. I love the Beatles. It's so cliche, but I don't give a F. It's like they're one of my favorite bands. I will always love the Beatles. I just recently was able to go to London for the first time in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And I went to Abbey Road and I walked the little crosswalk where you're like, "Oh, I'm in the Beatles," and you see their studio, where they recorded all of their stuff. And yeah, my dad was a musician and he was a huge Beatles fan, and so I had all of their records. And I had a record player growing up, so I was able to listen to like Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and I listened to that almost every day waking up and getting ready for high school, putting my makeup on. I'd listen to that record. Like, I loved I still love the Beatles. I love them. And same thing as the Police when I was in the car, Meet the Beatles, that record, which I didn't know at the time, was that record, but that was
Mm-hmm.
playing in the background of me going to school, and I want to hold your hand. Like that was just
Mm-hmm.
playing, and I'd be like, "Oh, I love this song. I love this album." And like, whatever else covers that they were doing, they were all so important to me. And
Yeah.
then I was literally like 7 or 8 at the time. They were obviously producing a lot more music than that, but that was my introduction to the
Mm-hmm.
Beatles. And then my dad gave me all of his records of the Beatles, Abbey Road, the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, and just different introductions to them. So I'd be able to listen to them and be like, wow, I love this song or I love that song. And he also had like a whole like 4 CD long the Apple records of the Beatles
Mm-hmm.
songs, and so I really got to know which songs I loved, like like Love, and a lot of John Lennon songs and a lot of Paul McCartney songs that were all kind of just like fused into the same album. Yeah, I love the Beatles. I always will. I think it's mostly because I love my dad and my dad's not around anymore, and I'm able to just kind of like listen to those albums and be really nostalgic and also realize
Mm-hmm.
where I came from as a musician. And yeah, I'll always love those albums. Always.
Yeah, no, and that's beautiful. I think people sometimes lose sight of how music, particularly, but almost most things in pop culture, can have familial bonds too, right? Like it's not only just what the art can do, but kind of the memories that it can provoke and the people and relationships that are also associated with art in general. And so it's beautiful that you said that about your dad, because music is not just the art itself, but kind of what your relationship with that art is and with people in general. And so, you know, music feels good because when you sometimes even just hear lyrics, it makes you think about the relationship and your experience with the world, right? So
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Daniel and I were also talking beforehand about like this desire sometimes to be like, I wish I wrote this song. We were talking about a separate experience of like another artist wishing that they had written another song, or feeling like I want to plagiarize this song so bad, because it's written so well. And I think that's like so much of the Beatles experience.
Yeah.
I think they churned out amazing song after amazing song, and every single one of them has like a pen that's unmatched. Like George Harrison wrote incredible tunes, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, all of them wrote, Ringo too, sorry Ringo, but less so. They all wrote these incredible tunes, like, and it was made people envious at that time to be like, man, I wish I could write this song. And everyone else who was in the industry is like, fuck, why can't we do what the Beatles are doing? And it's so crazy that in their short span of 10 years or whatever it was that they were like really in it and doing things, like they just turned out hit after hit after hit. And it's just incredible what they did.
It is, totally. It really made an
Yeah.
impact on rock and roll in general. I mean, obviously what I like about them is they were crediting people that they knew that they were taking inspiration from, which was a lot of like, the R&B slash like soul pop rock era. And they really made a voice for like themselves, but also they made a point to say like, we really love these other bands too, who have inspired where we're coming from, in general. But yeah. I mean, I didn't learn that until my, these days, but when I was first listening to them, I was just overwhelmed by how excited I was about rock music in general. Like that's where I learned what rock was from the Beatles, to be honest.
Did you ever watch that movie Yesterday? It came out like a few
I
years ago.
did, actually, yeah.
What'd you think
It was
about it?
amazing.
I might cut this.
It made me
Yeah.
cry a little bit. I mean, there's so many Beatles reference movies and programs that come out. They just came out with one on Hulu with the Paul McCartney, the 3-part or however many parts, the black and white one. That's super cool too, because you get to see kind of like behind the realm of like the recording process. And as a recording artist now, I probably wouldn't have appreciated that as much before. And now I get to see that kind of thing and be like, wow, like that's so cool to hear that they recorded this or that, doing this or that. And I don't know, it's super cool.
No, I agree. Absolutely. Well, let's get to another, just beautiful song in general, Blue by Miss LeAnn Rimes. I talk about, I just talked about like having an amazing pen, an ability to songwrite in such a way. And while this was originally written by, Bill Mack, it's such a beautiful song. And there's so many lines in there that like capture hurt in a way that I didn't think was possible, But yeah, tell me about how you kind of discovered this tune and what you love
Oh
about
my
it.
God. I love this song. I was trying to think when you gave me this forum to fill out, like what songs really matter to you. And there's so many, obviously, as a musician, but this song, I think it was my 8th birthday, and my mom and my dad gave me LeAnn Rimes on cassette, her album Blue, and I would put it on my little cassette player and listen to it, and I would just sing this song Blue around the house. The blue, oh so lonesome for you. And it was so important to my
Mhm.
existence as a human and a musician, because I didn't know I could sing before I heard this song. And because
Oh,
I'm not,
wow.
I kid you not, before this song, I didn't like, I would just literally go around my house singing Blue in every room, every bathroom, every corridor, every garage, every car. And this song made me realize that I was a singer,
Mm.
because it was just so easy to sing for my soul. Like it just resonated in my soul. And every
Yeah.
time I listened to this album, like I would skip every song except for Blue. And the album's name is Blue, but like, yeah, I would
Yeah.
just wait for that song to come on so I could sing Blue with LeAnn. And I would just like put up like put one off and be like, "Listen,
Mhm.
mom, listen, dad." And they were so proud of me, because they were like, "You know what? You're really expressing yourself, and you're creative, and your voice is great. Like let's put some effort into this, because you're obviously interested in music." And
Mhm.
yeah, it was probably the first time I realized that I wanted to sing, was
Yeah.
that song was Blue by LeAnn Rimes. Even before
That's
Britney
so crazy.
Spears, even before Backstreet Boys, even before NSYNC, like, and before any of that was LeAnn Rimes for me.
Yeah. Wow. And you said you were 8 when that came across. So
Eight,
do you remember, like, were you a heartbroken 8-year-old that like
probably,
resonated with
yeah, I was
it?
probably super heartbroken for no reason. And just,
Yeah.
walking around my little desert Arizona Sedona home, like singing this little song, thinking I knew what was going on, but like probably lost my Nintendo 64 game and
Mm.
and
Do you
related the
remember
two.
do you remember your first like heartbreak? How young were you? Do you remember when
Oh
you
man.
first had heartbreak?
Oh,
It doesn't have to be like your worst heartbreak, but
worst
your
or the
first one. The first. Because, like, for
Oh
me, the
my
reason I asked this question
god. Yeah, what's
is
for
you said
you?
8 at first. When you said 8 at first, I was like, that's so young. But then I remember I was actually in third grade.
Oh,
And third grade is probably around the time that you're 8 years old.
yeah.
So it's not like too crazy. But I remember there's this girl that, she was my girlfriend. We said that was the case as little third graders, which now if I see a third grader, I'm like, okay, I did not have a girlfriend, but in my head I did. And we held
So
hands at recess and it was like the
cute.
best thing. And there was one day she called me on the phone and like said she didn't want to be my girlfriend anymore or whatever,
Oh.
And I just like
Oh
am
no.
laying in my mom's bed
You're
sobbing,
like, this is
sobbing, like
terrible.
yeah, exactly. So I remember and I know it's possible that young. So that's the reason I asked that question if you remembered your first one, because
Oh,
it could have been that young.
probably. No, I had so many heartbreaks. I was like a lover. I wanted to love everyone. I didn't realize what that meant, but I was like, I want you to love me.
Yeah. And honestly,
Yeah.
there's the line that's repeated multiple times in this tune that I think like captures it in the best way. And it's just, why can't you be blue over
Why
me?
can't you
And
be
like,
blue over me?
yeah, it's like the craziest thing, like, because it's repeated so many times and like it doesn't lose its luster, at least to me.
Totally.
And like when you actually really think about what it's saying, like it captures like unrequited love in a way that's like very like, that's what I said, like there's lines that like hurt more than like you knew was
Yeah.
possible. And like that's one that's just like you're lamenting over like
Mhm.
what you just mentioned, like I want to love and love so hard and I just want that in return. And it's such a beautiful experience, but also so sad because we've all felt
Yeah,
it.
totally. And I think she was super young too. She was like 16, 17 when she was recording that song. And I don't realize now,
Interesting.
but like now I realize how young that is. Obviously, I'm 31 now. And when I was
Yeah.
16, I totally went through like at least 5 or 6 heartbreaks, you know? Like totally. Yeah, the same way you did when third grade. Like I like I know for a fact that I was heartbroken a few times. And yeah,
Yeah.
she was so young when that song became super popular, and I was 8 years old when I heard it. So, you know.
That's what's really fucked up about the whole experience, though. Sorry, Daniel, is that like heartbreak never gets any easier.
No,
It's not like you
never.
mentioned. It's like, oh, I've been through like 5 or 6 times at 16, but it's like every single one is still like, fuck, this hurts so
So
bad. Like,
bad.
why? What? Go ahead, Daniel.
It's funny that you say that, Ryan. I remember that being like one, experiencing like my first heartbreak when I was a super young teenager. I think that was like one thing that I think it was my grandpa had told me something like that, was basically like, oh yeah, that's like the one kind of pain that never really gets easier, or never really, like, it's always going to hurt like the same way every time. Well, I think it's cool that you point to one song and you were like, no, that was my song. That's what taught me I knew how to sing. Like, it makes me wish that I could probably sit there and like go through music that I listened to around that age and probably find the one thing too, where it's like, oh, that's what made me realize I wanted to actually be a musician. But to be able to like know that, no, I listened to that song and I sang that song and it made me feel a certain way, that I realized like, oh, I want to like dedicate my life to this. I think it's really cool that you have, a singular place where that comes from.
That's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, it
And I think
is. It
also,
is.
because we're talking about like you're that age and you might not necessarily know like, um, or you might not really know like the depths of the emotions that you're feeling. But I think it's like through pop culture, through music, through movies, that we become aware of like what these things are, and they kind of inform our emotions, like
Totally.
how we're supposed to feel, or we can relate to things that we see. So it kind of guides us in a way, down a certain road of like how to feel.
Definitely. Yeah. Not even really realizing kind of what you're feeling, but you're just like guided to that by the emotion of the song, that you're like, whoa. Like, you're so young that you don't understand what heartbreak is, but you're like, oh, I'm so heartbroken. I'm 8 years old.
Yes.
No, thank you.
And
That's so sweet.
well, speaking of heartbreak and teenage years and angst, let's get to your last couple of records here in the Taking Back Sunday and Blink-182 era of your life, and
God.
talk to us about how that influenced you and how that is in Lilah's story.
Jeez, those two bands are my favorite. It's like almost like, I don't want to say embarrassing, but like, I don't know, like, they're just so guilty pleasure in my life that I can never get over them. Like, I still listen to those bands these days to get pumped up, or like feel a certain feeling. But Blink-182 was introduced to me through my brother, and he's a few years older than me, and I was probably like 10 when I heard their first album, which was Enema of the State. And then I got into Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and like their live album of that, and I just freaking love them so much. I always will. I'll always love like First Date and All the Small Things and What's Your name, what's your age again, or whatever.
Yeah.
And those songs are in my youth, so like embedded so hard in my youth that I'll never not think of how happy they made me.
Yeah.
And how excited they made me about pop punk in general. And I know they're super like simple, and a lot of their lyrical content is juvenile in general, but that's kind of why I love them. And I'll always love them. I think Blink-182 is like a huge pop culture moment in general for like rock, pop, indie, the beginning of what that looks like within, radio charts, and just in general. And, and Taking Back Sunday, Tell All Your Friends is like, I think that's the album that kind of made them famous and that they came out with. And I am a huge Taking Back Sunday fan and have always been. And one of my best friends who passed away, actually, she gave me that album, and we used to dance around my living room listening to that album and just feeling so much joy and so much fun from the emotion that their songs would give us. And so whenever I hear that album, I am brought back to this time of like no care, like 13-year-old Lilah, 13-year-old best friend, and just kind of like remembering what that felt like. And we were on tour with Built to Spill in 2019, and we had finished our show and we went to a bar and we were like, all right, cool, this is fun. We're just having some beers, and these few people came out from the darkness and they were like, hey, you had a great show. That was awesome. And I was like, thanks. Thanks a lot. That was fun. What's your names? They're like, oh, we're in a band too. And I was like, you are? What's your band name? They're like, Taking Back Sunday. And I was like, you're not. Like, punch him on the fucking shoulder. Like, no, you're not. You're fucking lying. Like, that's cool. Well, I'll take it back Sunday. Cool. And they were like, no, like, I literally am in Taking Back Sunday. Like, you guys, we're in Jacksonville tonight. We came to see the Built to Spill show, and you guys did great. And I was like, what? Like, I literally was like ghost face, like white, and was like, you're kidding me. Like, you're kidding me. And they were so sweet. It was John and a guy that Nathan, who plays with them when they're on tour, and they're Andrew, who's their tour manager. And I was just like, this isn't happening. Like, you guys have been my favorite band since I was 14 years old. Like, that's super cool. Like, okay, yeah, what's up? What's up? And ever since then, we've kind of been in communication. But like, yeah, their album, they were like, oh, come to our show the next night. That was like a stayed over, and we did, because it was on our way to New Orleans, and we were able to stay in like the VIP area or whatever. And it was so cool to like be able to sing literally every single word to their songs as they were playing as like older gentlemen. That, this album has been huge forever. And the entire audience was able to sing every word. So it was you were barely hearing them. It was like mostly everyone like me just being like, like just yelling at the top of our lungs, like every lyric that we knew. And yeah, so it's pretty wild. Like those albums are really important to me in general, but like in my 30s, they're even more important because I have a story kind of to go with them. Like, keep it like a secret and tell your friends are like hand in hand, super important in my youth. And now I have like actual memories to go behind them, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on what I asked earlier about like being able to transport yourself to that space, and when you shared that awesome story about your friend and Blink-182, and, these stories here, like life is about these stories and these moments. And it's so cool how art can play a factor in helping trigger that nostalgia and that memory for you to take you to that place that who knows if you'd be able to go there without that thing attached to it.
Probably not.
So it's beautiful little time capsules for sure. You also mentioned one thing, which is like how Taking Back Sunday absolutely just like can get you pumped up. And like, granted, this isn't on Tell All of Your Friends, but Make Damn Sure is like the song. If I just need to get hyped for anything, I am just, that's the ones that I need to go through.
Me too.
And yeah, I mean, you mentioned another thing that I wanted to touch on a little bit with Blink-182, in that the lyrics were somewhat juvenile, and that can be true.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting, though, is they capture a teenage young perspective, right? So juvenile, but I think it's juvenile for juvenile's sake and intentionally, right?
Exactly.
That's a perspective that exists. That's a perspective that like matters because it's in the world and we've all been there. It's juvenile as a 31-year-old or someone looking back on it today, But at that time, like, it's so relatable about what first date, like wanting a date to go well with your crush. Like, that's so relatable. And so is like just the lyrics that are about clueless adults who ruin society. Like, that is a perspective that exists today and existed then.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's they're totally situations where it's like, yes, it's juvenile, but I think it's intentional and, very artful that they're able to capture that perspective.
Oh, totally. And like Make Damn Sure is like off of Louder Now, which is a later record, but like also for Taking Back Sunday. But like, it's crazy because like my father passed away in 2017, and I literally couldn't listen to anything but Blink-182 and Taking Back Sunday. Like, I don't know what got into me, but it was like, that's all I could listen to was Louder Now and like Enema of the State / Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. And it was like being able to get into that part of my my psyche that was super like nostalgic in that sense, that I was able to be juvenile and be like, okay, I'm kind of carefree in these albums, and I know that makes me feel a certain way, so I'm able to feel this way regardless of what's happened here or there. So that album is super important, and that just happened in 2017. So like, yeah, I'm on that page with you.
Well, I'm so sorry again, to hear about both your dad and your friend. I know,
Thank you.
with it sucks that, it's associated with pain, but it also feels like with comfort at the same time.
Music helps for sure, but only certain music. Like, I can't listen. Couldn't listen to certain things, but like those types of bands I could listen to day and night and be fine. I was working all the time and would come off of work and just listen, like put on Taking Back Sunday, Louder Now, or like Blink-182, a certain song, and be like, all right, I'm okay now, which was weird, super weird.
Totally. Well, Lilah, we'll get you out of here. But before we do, we have 5 rapid fire questions that we ask everyone before we get out of here. Okay. So first one here, Lilah, if you could be on any reality TV show, which one would you choose?
I don't know. Let's make our own reality TV show and call it Smoothies in the Middle of Summer.
Deal. All right. What's the concept? You try smoothies around the nation in the middle of summer?
Around the nation in the middle of summer. You have to listen to certain songs. And if the smoothies resonate within your soul while you're listening to that song, then you get $100,000.
Let's go. I'm in. You know what? Next year, my Pop 5 Productions is going to go grab Lilah. We're going to go grab some smoothies either in Vegas where you're at or here in LA. And we're going to somehow.
Let's go. Smoothies and songs.
Awesome.
It's called.
Next question here. If people have never consumed any of your Pop 5, so all the stuff we talked about today, what's the one that you'd want them to go experience right now?
Definitely go experience Meet the Beatles, because that's the original 1960s, 1970s rock band that you're gonna want to hear.
Yes. Next, for aspiring songwriters or, people who just want to make music, what's one piece of advice that you'd give them?
Just make it. Like, don't stop. If you're like, oh, I can't do this, just do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Just do it. There's no reason not to. Just do it.
Yeah. No, I love that so much. What's one habit or quality that you think has contributed most to your success and where you are today?
Ooh, like, don't give up. Like, make sure you make time for your art. Even if it seems ridiculous, just make time for what you love. Make time for it.
Amazing. Last one here. Who's an artist you'd love to tour with?
Oh no, there's so many. There's too many. I don't know, like Lana Del Rey or like Alanis Morissette or like.
Here, we invented a game a bit ago, and my game now is there's some benefit concert that the 3 of you are all going to be on stage together. Lana, Alanis, and Lilah Rose. There you go. So we'll make it happen. Manifest it, baby.
Let's do it. I just got to I got to see Alanis Morissette recently, which was super cool. 2 weeks ago, I got to see her with Cat Power and Garbage.
That's so
it was
amazing. Oh, they were at the Hollywood Bowl
they
too,
were
in
the
LA.
same exact
Yeah.
tour was here at T-Mobile in Las Vegas, and it was so good and so inspiring because I've listened to all those bands since I was a baby girl. And if I could be on a bill with them, I would be so excited. So yeah, them.
Awesome. Who's someone you think we should have on the show?
Ooh. Well, anyone in my band is very cool. Chris Walsh, Teresa Esquera, and Lauren Poole. They're all very talented for sure, and in different projects as well. So they all have different insights. In LA, Vava and Vivo, her name, find her on Instagram. Vava, Vava, like Vava, and she is so talented. She used to be in a band, Leah, that we toured with a while ago.
This is perfect. It's okay. No, this is already more than we got. Yeah. No, so can you remind me? You said it was Vava Vivo? Is that what you said the name was?
Look up Vava. Vava.
Okay, perfect. Will do. Awesome. Last thing, Lilah, anything you want to promote, or where can people follow you? How can they find your stuff?
Find me on prismbitch.com, PRISM bitch.com. And I'm recording both Prism Bitch stuff and Lilah Rose stuff in November. So eventually I'll be releasing stuff, but Prism Bitch is always releasing stuff. So you can follow me on there.
Awesome. Well, great. Lilah, if you're ever in LA, come say hi. If I'm in Vegas, I'll hit you up. But thank you so much for coming. It was so awesome to talk with you and catch up. And it's been too long. We can't let it go this long again without speaking. But thank you so much for joining.
So honored that you wanted to talk with me. Thanks for having me, guys.
That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you're in the Albuquerque area tonight, please go check out Prism Bitch. Or in LA, they'll be here on Friday, so get tickets. Otherwise, find out when they'll be in a city near you, checking out their social media and website for their tour schedule. In the meantime, remember, share this episode with your friends, follow us on social media, or give us that rating on Apple Podcasts. It helps us out a bunch. We'll see you next time, but until then, what's your Pop 5?